Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's class. Tonight we're going to be talking about kids in chiropractic. Why should you get your children checked so soon? Why should children be checked in general? And what are things that may be problems later in life if left uncorrected? Well, first of all, I want to talk about the birth process. You see, the birth process is a very traumatic process. When children are born, 80% of the children born completely unassisted. This means no doctor involved, no midwife helping out of the birth canal, anything like that. This would be like a water birth or births in some third world countries, what have you. 80% of those children born completely unassisted will have a subluxation C1, C2. Okay, what is a subluxation? Well, if you are one of my regular watchers, you can answer that. So leave it in the comments below. Let's do that today. So when that subluxation occurs, it's going to block the movement and restrict movement. Well, we know that if you have abnormal movement, abnormal function, it will perpetuate the degenerative process. Now, granted, these kids are just starting to develop, so I'm not saying that it's instantly going to cause arthritis in children, but later in life, it definitely would, right? So let's look at what happens if hands are used. So if a doctor helps the baby out of the birth canal, if they're born cesarean, we know that that means that 100% or nearly 100% of those children born that way are subluxated C1 or C2. So where that leaves us is somewhere in the realm of 95 to 97% of children born are subluxated at C1 or C2. Now, that's not good. We want to get that moving. Why is it so critical to get moving? Well, you see, if it doesn't get moving, it's going to block the movement of the spine. And 90% of the nutrition of the brain comes from the movement of the spine. So think of conditions that are out there, neurological conditions. Could that be related to the fact that these children's necks aren't moving appropriately and so there's not appropriate nutrition? Possibly. I don't know, and I'm not laying claim to that. I'm saying use your own brain. There's a potential for that. Is it a big P or a little p, as some other TikTokers, I think his name is Pilot Steve, would say? Is it a big potential or a little potential? When you make up your mind for that. But if you don't eat, if you don't have proper nutrition yourself, are you functioning well? The answer is no, right? So how can we expect our brains to function well if the 90% of the nutrition of the brain comes from the movement of the spine? So that's number one to think about. Number two that we want to think about is that as kids age, they learn how to walk and talk and move, right? If your child is not crawling and they're trying to stand immediately, that tells me that their pelvis has issues or their sacroiliac joint has most likely a subluxation there. And it is uncomfortable for them to crawl. Well, okay, they'll walk. No, that's not a good thing, because crawling, it's called cross-crawl decussation. It's what causes the brain, the left side of the brain, to control the right side of the body, or the right side of the brain to control the left side of the body. That comes from that neural pathway being developed during crawling. Also, the cervical spine curvature and the lumbar spine curvature come from learning to crawl. It's huge, okay? So yes, in a sense, if your child's trying to walk before crawling, you need to gently, without malice, put them back down. Let them stay down. Pardon me just a second. Okay, so I apologize for that interruption. Obviously, I'm doing this class while I'm open, so sometimes the phone will ring. So I forget where I was in that. So I apologize while I gather my train of thought here. So if they are trying to walk, you want to help them crawl. Now, I'm not talking about push them down. I will jokingly say just push them down and have them crawl. But what I, gently coax them back into the floor and crawl. And if they're still not wanting to do that, get them to your chiropractor, because they definitely need to be adjusted, or at least be checked for that. There could be other reasons, right? But subluxation is one of the leading reasons that children don't want to crawl. So we can adjust, free up that subluxation, allow them to crawl again, allow that decussation to happen, that patterning of neural pathways to happen, and allow them to have better brain health. Apparently it's hard for me to talk today. So that's a huge thing to look at. The other thing that we need to think about is how many times a child falls. We know that on average, by the time a child is 4 years of age, just 4, they have fallen over 4,000 times. Of that 4,000, half are significant. So that means 2,000 are significant. And half of the significant are traumatic, meaning that they could cause significant injury. So think about that. That means 250 times a year, on average, children are having significant trauma to their spine and bodies from falling. Do you think that's happening 250 times in their first year? The answer is probably no, right? But after that, there's probably a lot more year 2 and 3 and less in year 4, right? So why do I bring that up? Well, it's always better to get checked earlier, but definitely get checked in that second and third year if you're still on the fence about newborns. You definitely need to get these kids checked. We want them to have good, proper function. Does your child sit a W sit? This is where their legs are kind of bent backwards, right? If they're W sitting, there's a whole lot of stuff going on with their spine that needs to be taken care of, okay? Lots of structural issues. Do they walk with their knees? Are their knees bowed in? Are their feet splayed out? Are their toes in? These are all pelvic issues that need to be addressed. Do they have curvature of their spine, meaning scoliosis? Believe it or not, chiropractic with regular care really can reduce that curvature. I've seen it. I have had many patients who have gone. One patient that I'm thinking of went from 27 degrees of scoliotic curve to less than 11, which means she actually was less than a scoliosis. Now, it took a couple of years. She is now over 18 years of age. Her scoliosis has not gotten worse. Why? Because her bones are now fully formed. It is imperative that we get these kids checked while their bones are forming rather than already formed. Think about this. If you are building a car and you want to change something, is it easier to change it as you're building it? Or is it easier to change after everything's been built, painted, and ready to go on the sales floor? It's a lot easier to change it once it's been, or before it's been built. That's the same thing. We want to change these bones as their alignment so that when they're older, they're moving and wearing evenly, so that these children have amazing futures. So what happens with these children? I'll give you 2 cases. I have one patient here who has been checked from 3 weeks after birth and been checked on average once a week for the rest of his life. And he is, I believe he is 62 years of age. Not exactly sure. I'd have to look that up, and I'm not about to do that. So let's say he's 60s, right? Early 60s. He has very limited, if any. Last I saw his x-rays, he didn't have any, but that was a few years ago. He had 0 arthritis about 5-6 years ago. Okay. Now, I don't know. I haven't taken new x-rays in that time because he hasn't had significant injury. So there's no reason to take x-rays for me. So that's kind of cool. right? Here's somebody in his 50s. I have another gentleman who is 84 this year, and he's been checked once at birth and once a week thereafter. And more times than not, when he comes in, he'll come in, lay down on the table, get checked. And he's a snowbird, so I haven't seen him yet this year. He gets in here about now. He's here July, August, and maybe part of September. He doesn't come up here too often. But he's got a nice little house, so he's here once in a while. And we'll call him Bob. No, that's not his real name. So Bob will come in and he'll say, well, I want to get checked, and he'll lay down on the table, and sure enough, I did my home test, because there's a couple things you can do to see if you might potentially have a subluxation. And, I think I'm out, and he'll lay down, sure enough, he's out. Or he'll come in and say, doc, I think I'm pretty good, but I want to make sure that I'm good, so I want to get checked. He'll lay down. He's absolutely right. He doesn't need to be adjusted. And that's fantastic, right? He also has 0 signs of arthritis in his spine. Well, that's weird. Well, a normal, functioning, proper moving spine has the potential to not form or degenerate, not form arthritis or degenerate for well over a century. That's pretty amazing, right? We're not supposed to show signs of degeneration until well after 100 years of age. But we're seeing degeneration and arthritic formation in teenagers. This is the biggest reason why I want kids in here getting checked. I want them to have a better life than any of us have. I want to help them to move better, maintain that movement for life, and to function at such a higher level that it'll blow our minds. So, my big question to you, have you had your kid checked? If yes, congratulations, thank you, I love you for that. Your kids will love you in years to come for that. If no, why? It's worth getting checked. And if you are concerned and want to talk with me about the risks and the benefits, or how much pressure is used to adjust a baby and things of that nature, please come in. It is the safest way to take care of your child. It's really beautiful to see, and it's hard to convey over video, so I want to show that to you in person. Okay, so please come in. Let's have that conversation. Let's help you and your family have an amazing future going forward. So I hope you've taken something away from this. And what I hope you take away is to make sure that any child, anywhere, gets checked for subluxation so that they can have a better life than you and I have had. That's my hope, my prayer. So I wish you all a beautiful evening. I wish you all a fantastic 4th of July, as that is coming up on Friday. And I hope that very many of you, all of you, in fact, are very, very safe this 4th of July. And please, don't drink and do fireworks. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.